listening to 60-Minute Overtime with your host, Coach Danielle McCartney. You can follow her work on Twitter at Coach McCartney. That's at Coach McCartan.
That always happens. I never hit it fast enough. Oops, I just broke the mic stand. Hi, everybody. I'll have to hold this for now, I think. Anybody listening on 90.3 FM and anybody listening on Rampo Radio, welcome. We have a lot to get to today. We are jam-packed. The focus of today is going to be on athlete wellness. All aspects of it. Training. What are you videoing me? Yeah. Holding this?
Yeah.
This looks ridiculous. I'm sure it does. Athlete wellness and training and dietary things and all kinds of different regimens and everything. So we want to get right to it. I'm here with Andy Smith from the Bro Down podcast.
What's up?
Hey, Andy's here as he always is. And Cory Cannici is here, graduate of Rampo College with me, owner of the Parisi Speed School of Wyckoff, New Jersey, and also a performance coach there. So, Cory, thanks for taking time out of your Sunday to come and be with us here.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Danielle. All
right, so today we're going to hear from, as well as Cory, he's going to do a little bit about his sort of training that he does at Parisi. But you'll also hear, I had an interviewed, like about a month ago, Dr. Ann Summers. She's the New York Giants team ophthalmologist, and she's now an author, available on Amazon. She'll tell you about that. Play some clips from my interviews. I know you guys have been here listening when I interviewed Mike Reilly from the Cardinals and Mike Teel from the Seahawks. So I just cut little clips from their interviews about their focus on athlete wellness, and Mike Reilly goes into his training routine. Mike Teel takes it from more of an approach as a coach, because he is coaching football at Don Bosco High School in New Jersey now, in Ramsey. We're going to take a live call-in from Brian Martin, the NFL Program Director for Parabolic Performance and Rehab. He actually trained Stephen Longa, who has been on this show before, in preparation for the NFL Combine. And we're taking a live call-in from Dr. Stephen Stoller, is an orthopedic surgeon in Englewood, New Jersey, and he specializes in the aging athlete. So, without any further ado, let's hear from the athletes themselves. So, Mike Reilly and Mike Teel on wellness. Mike Teel is going to be first. You'll hear his voice first. He's the former Rutgers quarterback, former Seattle Seahawks quarterback, and current coach at the Don Bosco Prep football program.
What steps do you take to promote the wellness among your players? You seem like you're really invested in them as a whole.
You know, with high school kids, it's a little different. You demand and expect so much of them that sometimes you forget that they're, 14 through 18-year-old, young kids that are kind of developing and sort of learning how to be men and, getting them ready for college and all that stuff. So from a physical standpoint, the biggest thing that I've seen that our strength coach does and that we do as a program is we really try to develop good habits, both in the weight room, on the practice field, because there's a lot of stuff that coming from their Pop Warner teams, you don't learn, and that's kind of what the high school job is. So we simply break it down and go through the basic steps of what it takes to do a lift the proper way, or to run a route, or make a tackle the proper way, to ensure that the kids are learning how to do it and making sure that they're safe doing it.
I saw a Jets thing. I went to the practice facility in Florham Park, and I was there it was Nick Folk and Bilal Powell and Trevor Reilly. And one of the main things that they were talking about, what Woody Johnson promotes to them, is at that facility, all of the food is all organic. Do you follow any kind of program yourself, or when you were playing, just to ensure that you were at your tip-top shape in playing in the NFL?
Yeah, no doubt. As an NFL football player, you do everything you possibly can to ensure that you're giving yourself every advantage. And the biggest thing, probably the most important thing, weight training is important, and being in shape and condition and all that stuff, but the biggest thing that goes not unnoticed, but probably has less dedication to it is your diet and your meal plan and your eating plan, your tendencies and all that stuff. So I worked with a nutritionist. I wasn't to the point where it was only organic food, but it was a certain amount of caloric intake per day and a certain amount of proteins and sugars, and I cut a lot of stuff out while I was a player to make sure that my muscles were healing the best that they could, and so on and so forth. So there's definitely scientific ways and nutritional ways to help your body perform based on what you eat, and that's kind of one of your jobs as a NFL football player. Is your body is your job. If you physically cannot handle it, you're not going to have a job. And ultimately, that's how my career ended because of an injury. But while you're there, you can do so many different things with massage therapy and stretching coaches and yoga and all that stuff. And, everyone talks about yoga, how, women do yoga and this and that. There's a lot of NFL football players that do yoga because flexibility is such an important part, an important piece of the puzzle to being a complete athlete.
Right.
So yeah, diet and all those little things that you can try to take advantage of are hugely important.
And now, do you preach that to your players? Do they think you're kind of crazy with that, or do you just kind of keep that under wraps?
It's tough at this level, at the high school level, because their parents and families oftentimes are cooking them dinner, and they're the ones who are feeding them. When you have control over it in the college environment, when I coached the Rutgers in the college environment, we had control over what they ate, what time they ate, how much they ate, so you were able to monitor a lot easier. We do have parents in the high school level at Don Bosco who are conscious about trying to put the right foods in the kids' bodies, and we have a consultant who's a nutritionist who works with us, but it's not something that is mandated or predicated, for everyone. If they have interest and they want to try to help, then they will, but it's definitely something that is very useful.
And now, a current player's take on wellness. Mike Reilly, linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals. I follow you on Facebook. You are in the gym constantly. Actually, we're doing this interview after you came back from the gym. What steps do you take to ensure that you perform at your highest level? Is there a workout routine? Is there a dietary routine that you follow to get yourself at that level?
Okay. Just to be at the highest level possible, every time I'm at home training, I work out at baseball for Seattle. The trainers are awesome there. I've been with them since high school. They really see me grow all the way through. So for me, it's really just being an athlete. Trying to do everything I can. Pretty much every day I wake up and what can I do today to get better than I was yesterday. For me, it's all about setting goals and finding a way to get to that goal. So for me, this off season was to get more flexible, to get the exercise, set those goals, figure out specific things to meet those goals, and hopefully exceed those goals. That's always what I'm looking to do every day. And I try to eat as clean as I can. Definitely a little bit flexible because I'm an athlete, I need a lot of calories.
Right.
I cook a lot of my own food, so I'm always in the kitchen making a mess in there. Chicken and rice, pasta, vegetables, avocado, all that kind of good stuff. So, but for me, it's really, I enjoy the training process. I enjoy the process of setting goals and exceeding the goals. So for me, I enjoy waking up every day and doing that. It's not a chore for me, it's just my passion.
And I'll tell you, I watched some of those videos of you squatting. How much do you squat?
I think the most I ever did was 550.
That's insane.
Single rep, but recently I've been more a little bit lower with the weight and trying to get a little more exposure in there, a little more speed.
Yeah. That's insane. Do you do a little bit of yoga too? Because I talked with another football player for this show. He said there's a lot of players around the league that do it in terms of flexibility.
Yeah, I used to do yoga a lot more, but recently I've been a little bit more into it's this thing called functional range conditioning. So it's kind of yoga-esque, but I guess kind of a little bit more athletic movements and moving your body through athletic movement, but slowly and trying to get your end range movement.
Right.
With your flexibility. So, I think flexibility in movement is absolutely essential. I'm a big MMA and UFC fan. Conor McGregor is one of my favorite guys to watch, and he's all about the movement training and all the moving your body in different ways that other people don't move. So, I've been big on that recently, and it's been paying off for
All right, so that was Mike Teel, Mike Reilly. A couple of the takeaways I got from that is, most importantly, you have to eat well in order to play well. Cory, what do you I know I had mentioned to you as it was playing, the Jets facility has organic food only.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a huge thing in the training regimen, or does it?
You know what? I don't, obviously, I know you said you were going to ask me this at some point, but I don't train professional athletes. I haven't trained one. The biggest thing that I find with the athletes that I work with is typically that they're not eating enough. They're skinny kids. They're high school kids. They're trying to get into college. They weigh 145 pounds. But as far as the organic foods go, I mean, it's probably, no different than what you would see in everyday life for any human. You know what I mean? It's, all right, yeah, vegetables, some fruits, some berries, things like that are organic, some meats. They're great. If you don't do that, I don't know if it's the end of the world. I'm not sure. I guess I'm not smart enough yet.
Well, yeah, so Cory Cannici, by the way, we were in the same circle of friends here at Rampo College. Actually, neither of us, we were just talking before we got on, never actually really stepped foot in here as Rampo students. So this is kind of interesting that we're both back and both now in here.
That's the truth.
He owns Parisi Speed School of Wyckoff, New Jersey, and he also works as a performance coach there. And he focuses on programs that make someone a better overall athlete in any sport. And then there's some sports-specific training you do there. Mm-hmm. So, Cory, you mentioned you train. I'm a high school teacher, and a lot of the athletes that are playing for me and at our high school do end up going to you because you're in district pretty much. So you train youth athletes. So for my listeners out there with kids, what are some of the best practices for youth training?
The best practices, I would say just being physically prepared for a sport. What I see a lot of is that parents bring their kids in and they're on 3 different travel teams and they want them to play in college and they're playing softball, for example, all year long. And then they come in and they run and their knees are caving in and their ankles are, rolling over, and they're not physically prepared to play that sport. So I mean, that's what we see most often is just kids that are coming in, maybe especially at that high school level. They need to get stronger. They're not, I know we'll go over some things later. Mm-hmm. But they're just not physically prepared, and I think that's the biggest thing. Athletes just need to have that training, need to know how to move, need to know how to, like we said, know how to eat and all that.
So in a world of club teams and commitment to one sport, what do you suggest? Do you suggest sticking to the one sport athlete, or do you encourage kids to go and experience different sports in terms of training? I'm certainly not the first person to say this, but what I find works most often is that these kids are playing, at least 2 or 3 sports up until high school. Once high school comes, if it's in them to specialize in one sport, obviously you don't want to mentally drain them or anything like that. Right. I've seen kids that are really good at one sport, basketball, for example. They play it for years, and then by the time they're juniors, they're really good, but they don't really want to play anymore. They don't feel like it. Yep. So I always recommend that to parents. I've seen kids that are come into my speed school at 8 years old, and the parents say, "Oh, my son, he's really good at soccer. Like, I think he's gonna specialize in that sport." To me, that's crazy. That's where you see the injuries go up. You see, kids get burnt out really early. So that's my recommendation is, hey, keep them playing anything they feel like playing, anything they have fun playing, until they get to high school. And then if they want to specialize, then they do it. And if they don't want to specialize, keep letting them have fun.
Yeah, do you think maybe when you get to high school that kids need to focus more on the one sport if they're good at it? I mean, not every kid can go to college and be a superstar, but I feel like if you're, you happen to have a gift in this particular sport, do you feel that playing other sports might take away from some of their training for year-round that they could be doing like that? I'm not sure how other sports go. I'm not really a big sports guy, but as far as stuff like wrestling, if you're a top-end wrestler, usually you're not doing anything else but wrestling year-round and camps and stuff like that. You're not even trying to risk twisting an ankle on the court or playing basketball or anything like that. What's your how do you feel? I mean, I know if you're just playing sports just to play sports and you like doing it, enjoy it, but as far as trying to get a scholarship and everything like that, do you think it changes a little bit when it comes to how you approach it?
As long as they're taking care of their body in other ways, as long as they're not again, I bring up basketball a lot because I it's my favorite sport, and I train a lot of basketball kids, a lot of high school athletes, and a lot of kids going into college. What I would say is as long as they're working on their body, as long as they're strength training properly, as long as they're moving differently. What you see is in basketball especially, a lot of ankle sprains because kids are always playing basketball, and they've never worked on their hip strength. They've never worked on, their core strength, their flexibility. They just play basketball. As you're obviously if you're in high school and you want to play college athletics, you have to put in the extra time at that.
Because there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah,
and you don't
right,
want
exactly.
can't overdo it with your body.
What I've told with a few of my high school athletes is it's almost like a sliding scale as you go through the years. You can still play other sports when you're a freshman. The later you get on the seat in your high school career is when you would want to specialize more. By the time you're a senior, hey, if you're looking to play college basketball
You
or
should
college
know your
football,
sport by then.
you should. If you've got a chance, especially to get a scholarship and go Division
Yeah.
I, I would specialize, junior year, senior year, and just spend all of your time on those things.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. So, Cory, we'll get back to you in a little bit, especially what you said about the hip training and parts of the body you don't normally think of training in reference to specific sports. We will talk about that when we discuss the Leonard article on an ESPN. So we'll talk about that.
Sure.
Right now, it's sort of interesting. You don't think, you think training muscles, training, biceps, triceps, quadriceps. You don't think of actually eye care in terms of athlete wellness. So this might make you open your eyes a little bit with this. I interviewed the...
I see what you did there.
Hey, see,
Well done.
I didn't even plan that. I didn't have that written down. But Dr. Ann Summers is the New York Giants team ophthalmologist, and she's got a pretty interesting take on stuff and some anecdotes of some players that have come into her office, which is in Ridgewood, New Jersey. So take a listen. Dr. Ann Summers, you are on 60-Minute Overtime. She's a Bergen County ophthalmologist specializing in LASIK, contact lenses, cataract surgery, glaucoma, macular degeneration, dry eye, glasses, eye injuries, eye infections, and so much more. And now you guys, my listeners, must be thinking, hey, why do I have an ophthalmologist on a sports radio show? I'll tell you why. Because Dr. Ann Summers has been the New York Giants team ophthalmologist since 1990. That's 16 years for anybody keeping track. So, Dr. Ann Summers, it's a pleasure to have you on my radio show today.
I'm delighted to be here, Danielle. It's very exciting.
How does one become the official ophthalmologist of a professional sports team? And what are your responsibilities in that job description?
Well, it always varies. I've done both the Nets and the Giants. To some extent, it's being responsible for everything on the team. So it can be a player's eye injury. It can be someone who works for the Giants, a friend of the coach. It can be family members of people who work there. And it's any injuries, any contacts, any problems that might occur. I was very busy when I used to be the ophthalmologist for the Nets because basketball is a much more fingery game. There's a lot of poking of eyes, a lot of jabbing of eyes. And I see this even in local Ridgewood basketball pickup games. There's a lot of minor eye injuries with basketball. With the New York Football Giants, thank goodness we've never had any serious eye injuries to our players, but different players on different teams throughout the NFL have had everything from scratches of the eyes to contusions of the eyes to even loss of an eye during play.
Wow. Are you a Giants fan?
I am the biggest Giants fan there ever was. I love that team. The Maras have been wonderful. It is a great, great team. It's exciting to follow. And, they're just... I'm so proud to be associated with them, and it's so exciting when we have players come into our office. We all just stand up straighter and try to do everything we can for them because it's really important, depending on what your position is, really good vision can make a gigantic difference. So a slight change in someone's contact lenses, a little adjustment, can make a huge difference for a player. And when you're at that level of play, even the smallest adjustment can give you that 1%, that 5% additional speed, reflex, response that is absolutely critical in such a high-level game.
Yeah, and when they come into the office, you have the office in Ridgewood, New Jersey, you mentioned. Do you guys ever ask for autographs or anything from the players and photos and stuff?
Well, we try very much not to.
Okay.
We try to be very much professional. We had a problem once where Lawrence Taylor was in the office.
Oh, yeah.
And he was just trying to check out and make an appointment to come back to pick up his glasses and contacts.
Yeah.
And a line formed of people who demanded autographs. And he explained it to me, and this is true for all of them. The moment you start signing anything, there's no ending it.
Yeah.
Because people started bailing from the dermatologist's office next door to like, oh, what's going on in there? Oh, is he giving autographs? No, he is not. And so it becomes a problem because as the person that you say no to at the end becomes angry. Why not me? You gave them one. So, and even the selfies, it can be extremely difficult. And I was very sympathetic when I saw that happening.
Yeah. Now, we have when sports teams are in trade negotiations with new players, or they're in the process of acquiring new players, and the media is reporting like we are awaiting physical examination results on so and so. Are you included in that process? Is an eye exam part of that, or is it just like a physical exam?
Oh, it very much depends on the player,
Okay.
depends on the issues, depends on whether there's a known injury or a surgery or there's a specific thing they want to see about speed or strength. Once in a while, I'm definitely involved because there's not a question of an eye injury or eye problem, a question of some issue going on. So it's more of a specific issue. The NFL is very, very careful to make sure that every player is fit to play.
Right.
So there's a screening test that's done before you're allowed to put the Giants uniform on.
Right.
Done every spring for both the rookies and for the veterans, and just to make sure everyone's blood pressure is good. Everyone, they do blood tests, they do reaction tests, they do strength testing, they do mobility, and they certainly do a complete eye exam as well. And I participate in that every year for every single player, both free agents, prospective players, the veteran players, and the rookies, the ones who've been drafted and the ones who haven't. All of them come through. And also making sure there's no issues of concussion. The NFL and the Giants in particular are extremely careful about who's playing for them and making sure there's no injuries. And early intervention, early treatment, avoiding injuries, safety, absolutely first. So it's fun for us. We love going down to do the screening. It's really, really fun. It's great to see everyone returning, and it's fun to welcome the new players. But it's very important that any problems are identified at that time and resolved.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Lawrence Taylor earlier, actually. After they retire, a lot of them tend to stay local to this area. Do they continue to come to you for annual checkups and treatments after they've retired?
Oh, some of them do. Some of them do, which I just love. It's great to see them. It's great to see them doing well. One of my absolute favorites is Charles Way, who played for the Giants for many years and then was in the administration for the Giants and now is working his way up in the NFL to the NFL administration. He works for the big, the national organization.
Oh, wow, really?
And it's just great. It's great to watch his children grow up. No surprise, his children are extremely gifted athletes. So it's just fun to see them all growing up. It's been just an adventure.
Yeah, he came, actually, I'm a teacher at Ramapo High School, and he had some foundation. I was student teaching. It was like 6 years ago, and he came and he gave a whole speech, and he was great. I actually really enjoyed him.
Oh, Charles Way is one of the nicest people, one of the smartest players. He's like Dhani Jones or Michael Strahan, who just stand out for being articulate, engaging, smart, thoughtful, and then unbelievably good athletes. Yeah. In addition to all that, which is just an amazing thing to be that together when you're that young and that gifted, to also be able to be kind and generous with their time and reaching out to the community. They're just those three guys in particular just are really memorable people.
Yeah, I love Michael Strahan too. I know the trainers do. I think they do. But do the official team ophthalmologists get Super Bowl rings too?
I wish I did. I'd have two.
Yeah,
no, sadly, I do not. That's a sad fact.
I know there's patient-doctor confidentiality, but I'm sure my listeners are interested to hear some anecdotal stories about our favorite Giants and your favorite Giants. So could you tell any funny stories about any of them that have come in?
Not by name, but the funniest injury, which I promise I'd never tell anybody who it was. One of the guys got a terrible eye injury, banging his head on his own helmet.
Oh no.
Yes, and he was dying. He's not with the team anymore, but he was just dying. As a doctor, my responsibility is to that individual person, that player, to do the right thing by him for the long term. So it's easy to think, oh, we can sacrifice everything for Sunday's game, but actually the most important thing is what's exactly right for this person. Even if just assume he didn't have a game tomorrow. Assume that he is a lawyer or an IT specialist or whatever. Would I say it's all right to go play football tomorrow? If I would say that to him, no matter what, then fine. But if I would say, oh no, you must go and have bed rest, why then that's the appropriate thing for that player.
Right. Do you have like a favorite athlete to work with? Is it always someone that's like a fun time when they come into the office?
Oh, I love them all.
Yeah.
I enjoy the young ones. I enjoy the new ones. I think they're just they're great. I always get excited when I see that a trainer's coming in or a player's coming in or a player's wife or a coach's child. It's all fun for me. It's all fun to see them.
Yeah, that's so cool. Right when they had come out, I wrote up a whole piece about how the NFL's color rush uniforms is where they would dress the athletes in one team color from head to cleat, literally, were actually abominable. They were awful. They should get rid of them. And the first game that they featured this year on Thursday Night Football with these uniforms were the Jets wearing green versus the Bills who were wearing all red.
I can't answer.
Could you expand upon the difficulties for the colorblind players and the fans watching this game?
Well, 7% of all American men are colorblind, and they can't tell, like, dark red from dark green. So that, first of all, there was outrage among the people who were watching the game, because you can imagine if 7% of the people watching can't make any sense of the play. It was fascinating. The New York Times had a picture just showing it in black and white, and it looked, because a colorblind person can tell saturation, so that they can tell if something's a light pastel or a dark like olive color or dark navy. But what they can't tell is the difference between light pink and light orange and light yellow, and they can't tell the difference between dark red and dark green. And that's exactly what the Jets and the Bills were wearing. Dark red and dark green. But it looks to a colorblind person like everyone is wearing the same muddy color, and they couldn't tell a thing. Many men are colorblind or color deficient. So, for instance, it just made it harder for them to see. It wasn't so much that they couldn't tell who the different teams were, but it was much harder to watch, harder to follow the game. And that's so the color deficiency, red-green color deficiency is very common. Not complete color blindness, but it's a difficulty with colors. So they certainly aren't going to do that again. They were very much aware. The NFL was very much aware immediately that this was a problem. I don't think it was a problem specifically for the players, because the players they're very much attuned to the individual person. So no one is going to throw the ball to the wrong player. That's not going to happen. But I think it made it for the NFL. It's a spectator sport, and if it's not good for the spectators, it's not good for anybody.
Do you think, the NFL is such a thorough organization, it's a spectator sport, they want the people to watch. Do you think the NFL should have been a little more sensitive to people with this condition before unveiling these uniforms, or done their research at least before this game?
Oh, I think they were shocked by this. I don't think anyone realized kind of what would happen. It wouldn't have been so bad, for instance, if they had someone playing with dark green and light blue.
Right.
It would have been fine. It just happened that the Bills and the Cardinals are both deeply saturated colors.
Right. All right, and then I know you have a book coming to Amazon soon, so if you want to plug that, sure.
If you're a pre-med or you want a funny book to give to your friend who's a pre-med or to anyone who's interested in medicine, a PA or a nurse, it's called The Official MD Handbook. It's extremely funny, and it's all about the life of a doctor and life of a medical student, and you can order it on Amazon starting in 1 month, and you can certainly get a preview on Amazon as well, and it will be delivered right to your iPhone or your iPad or whatever, your device.
Yeah.
And I do encourage you, it's under my maiden name, which is Ann Eva Ricks, and it's called The Official MD Handbook, and I know you will find it very funny.
Thank you so much. And everybody listening, for all your eye care needs, please visit Dr. Ann Summers. Her office is in Ridgewood, New Jersey, and she's the Giants team doctor. How cool is that?
Thank you so much.
All right.
Great talking to you, Danielle.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Go Blue.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, so that was the interview with the Dr. Ann Summers. That was very enlightening. It's cool to see the other aspect of this, like the doctors with the players. We just know them in one capacity. So I thought that was pretty interesting, especially the color rush uniforms. So for people that are colorblind, green and red are really difficult to see. And I wrote about that as soon as it came out. So, okay, on the line, the phone is ringing. Hi, you're on 60-Minute Overtime. Is this Dr.
Hi.
Stoller?
Yes, it is.
Okay, everybody, we have on the phone Dr. Stephen Stoller. He's an orthopedic surgeon in Englewood, New Jersey, who specializes in the aging athlete. He's also trained in sports medicine and has treated athletes for over 35 years. He has treated professional boxers from all over the country, as well as in several countries. He's a very big Jet fan, go Jets, but he, as far back as the Titans on the Polo Grounds, was him. A big Knick fan. You may have seen him in Celebrity Row on occasion, and he is quite the athlete, both now and when he was younger. So thanks for giving up your time to call in. We really appreciate you having you here.
Oh, well, my pleasure, Danielle. So I know you were interested in discussing Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. So your interest was in their longevity, or
I'm here with my co-host Andy, and
How you doing?
Hi, Andy.
and Cory. He's the owner of Parisi Speed School in Wyckoff. You might have heard of it.
I sure did. My son Brandon practiced with the Sims brothers for years, and he was a star quarterback at Hackley and Tarrytown, and then played sprint football at Cornell.
Gotcha.
So yes, and I've also sent boxers over to train at Parisi's.
Cool.
Look at that. That's pretty cool. That might have been a
Yeah.
little bit before my time, but that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Okay, so I was more interested in and I was watching leading up to the Super Bowl, the media week. Peyton Manning was asked about Tom Brady and will he retire? Will Peyton Manning retire? What about Tom Brady? And he pointed to something which was very interesting. He said that Tom Brady will play forever based on his extremely strict diet and workout routine. And his chef, Tom Brady's chef, has said that he stays completely away from inflammatory foods: tomatoes, peppers, mushrooms, eggplants, no white sugar, no white flour, no MSG, no dairy, no caffeine, and the only fruit he eats are bananas. So is there any validity to this type of diet being linked to a longer playing career?
No. I mean, to be quite honest with you, no. I mean, it's not a bad diet, but no, it will not extend his playing career. And there are a couple of things with diets. There are diets for losing weight. There's diets for health. There's diets for athletes, and there are also diets where you want to build up muscles. So I really don't want to get into diets, because I did look at the diet, and some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. And I don't think it really has anything to do with his longevity. And one thing, after studying problems with the aging athlete, there's one thing that you cannot prevent and you should be aware of in order to extend your career. And that is, as you get older, you need a longer recuperation time. There's no way to shorten that. There are things that you can help, but by extending your career, is recognizing that you do need an extra day or two off, and that would help. And probably, like in the NFL, if they didn't have to play every week, and like they had a pitch count, like in baseball, you would probably see quarterbacks last, 5 more years maybe. But that's probably why, especially in the NFL, that's probably what shortens their careers, because they don't have time to really recuperate, and they also end up with injuries along the way.
Right. So I know that Jets wide receiver Brandon Marshall receives regenerative injections in his knees,
Yes.
I think weekly, in order to combat injury in an effort to prolong his career. Do you do that in your office, and what specifically does this procedure do for an athlete like him?
Okay, the real question is for me, since I don't know what regenerative injection, that's, I'm not certain he's getting an injection weekly, and I really hope it's not cortisone, because that would ultimately destroy the knee, and I doubt that any physician would be giving him that on a weekly basis, which he may be getting, routinely, is what's called PRP. It's protein-rich plasma.
That's it. Yep, that's
I've
what it
actually
is.
had a bunch of those injections over the last couple months, Doc.
Okay, protein-rich plasmas,
That's
when
it.
they take your blood, they filter out the red and white blood cells. And within the fluid that's remaining has maybe 25 to 30 other ingredients. Probably 2/3 of those are helpful for the knee, such as, growth stimulating factor and insulin stimulating factors and other ingredients that help reduce inflammation and help, heal any tissue. And then there's other ingredients that really do nothing, and there's others that may even be harmful. But that's about as much as we know about it now. What I have moved away from PRP, I use stem cells, and I've really like using stem cells. What stem cells are is that you take the bone marrow, like you would in a bone marrow transplant. However, it's only like a microscopic portion compared to a big surgery there. And when you spin down the bone marrow to get the stem cells, the stem cell is the most basic and immature cell in the body. So like when you're as an embryo, when you're growing, the stem cells could go anywhere and develop into almost any kind of tissue. And outside the body and laboratories, they are doing that. I mean, I've seen where they've constructed the inner ear, and I think I just read 2 days ago in Japan that I think they reconstructed or grew a eye lens. So they're working on that, but I use it in a primitive sense, but very successfully, by injecting it into the knee after I've cleaned up the knee and performed, what's called a microfracture. A lot of athletes get those, and after you've seen through the years, a microfracture alone, where you crack the bone where there's no articular cartilage, and it helps fool the body into thinking it's injured, and it forms a secondary cartilage. But as you've seen for yourself, there are a lot of athletes that are young and healthy that don't make it back even with this procedure. However, when I incorporated it with stem cells, and I'm also doing it on an older population, I've been doing it for 2 years, and my results have been very good. there's not a lot of literature out there, but on the other hand, there are a lot of athletes that are flying to Europe to get this procedure done.
So, hey, Doc.
Yeah.
I've had 2 shoulder surgeries before, both labral tears, and I've had a knee surgery of quad tendon tears. And I've also had about 28 different tears injected with the PRP. Do you think PRP is good for you, or you're saying that it's not as good as the stem cells? Because having both had surgery on the labral tears and the quad tendon tears, and then having the PRP done for the same injuries on bilateral sides, I found that the PRP fixed me up, especially with the knee, in about 3 weeks. I went from not even really being able to walk to having almost no pain at all.
Well, it reduces inflammation. Look, it's definitely good. I think stem cells is better. But here's the problem. Was your procedure done open?
No.
Complete?
Well, what happened was I've had both my shoulders reconstructed with the labrum, and then my left knee was done with the quad tendon, and my right knee had the same injury, but I didn't get it done because my orthopedic surgeon said that it was a very rare injury. Not a lot of people tear their quad tendon, so he wanted to do one at a time.
You have to do it one at a time.
Yeah,
it'd be hard for you to walk.
I wanted to see how much I was going to get recovery-wise, because he wasn't. I didn't just want it to be for no pain. I wanted to be able to use it again. So I want to see what kind of function I would get out of it. But when the doctor that I have does the PRP treatment, he uses the live feed ultrasound machine, and he actually injects the PRP right in there. Yeah, and when he goes back and he looks at it, and I've seen both pictures of, like my MCL, my quad tendon, and the tear is not there anymore.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering.
It's true. The only for that indication, PRP would be better because stem cells do not absorb well in soft tissue. They absorb well in bone.
Okay, so they're better for bone and bone type injuries and bone based injuries.
But if you had, for instance, if you had an area that this did not work, or it depends on the size of the tear and what your goals are.
Yeah.
Making a small incision or taking out the scar tissue. If I was to do that, what I would do is soak the suture in your stem cells, because it will absorb in suture, and then just sew that small area back together, and that has a higher regeneration property.
I noticed
you've had successful treatment.
Yeah, I noticed that the PRP, because I've had them in injections in muscular tears. I've had them in labral tears with cartilage tears, tendon and ligament tears. I've had every pretty much type of connective tissue that you can get them in, and they all heal from my experience at a different rate. The cartilage seems to be the slowest one, and sometimes it takes.
Cartilage is not going to heal.
Well,
cartilage.
I had the one in my labrum.
Did you have it fixed? You had a torn labrum. Was it fixed surgically?
It was fixed surgically, and then it retore again in several spots. And then
has to be fixed. It has to be fixed surgically.
Well, the injections that I had several weeks ago, it actually, I could see it on the screen. It was considerably smaller for the second time I had it injected, and now I have almost no pain in it at all. I mean, I don't know if that's actually.
Yeah, here's the thing. One, with ultrasound, you can't see the labrum that well. And two, if you do have a labral tear, it's not going to heal without being fixed. And the reason why is that cartilage, cartilage doesn't have a blood supply.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to heal. It won't heal even with a PRP injection. If you if you do it, look, I do them arthroscopically all the time and get very good results. But you can add, then again, if I was doing it, I'd add PRP or stem cells to enhance the
speed
fixation.
up the healing process.
Yeah, but if it's re-torn, you have to have it fixed. If you keep on getting injections, it may reduce the inflammation. It may allow you to function, but you're going to continue to tear the labrum. You'll end up with more instability, and then you probably will eventually end up with, rotator cuff, injury or,
I've had
tendinitis.
I've had 3 tears in the rotator cuff also injected.
He's like the bionic man over here.
Well, that is, if you're getting, how old, do you mind if I ask how old you are?
27.
Okay, if you're 27, you really need to have it repaired because you're not getting a rotator cuff injury at your age unless you're getting instability. And the first thing you want to do is repair the labrum, and not only do you repair it, but you want to advance it and tighten it up a little bit. And that's why you're getting rotator cuff injuries, is because your humeral head of your shoulder is moving around and pushing the rotator cuff against the bone on top. Because at your age, you should not have any rotator cuff problems. So I would consider, getting it, an MRI and again, having that done. However, as you look, from football, baseball, basketball, that once you fix the labrum, you will be out for 6 months. Not because you can't do the activities, but you can't do any heavy activities because it requires that amount of time for the labrum to heal to the bone, any ligament to heal to bone.
So, Doctor, we had mentioned, and you had mentioned to me that you wanted to talk about, and I think I agree with you on this position, that the Jets have tagged Muhammad Wilkerson as their franchise tag. And for anybody who doesn't know what that is, a franchise tag is a designation a team may apply to a player scheduled to become an unrestricted free agent. The tag binds the player to the team for 1 year if certain conditions are met. So the Jets went ahead and tagged Muhammad Wilkerson, having a pretty severe leg injury. So just quickly, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it was a waste of a tag, and what are the Jets' moves moving forward?
I think it's a waste of a tag, and look, I can't get into too many specifics because one, I don't have the medical records, and I don't, say anything inflammatory about the organization. Mm-hmm. But I will say this: from at least from the public that you could read, is that he had a fibular fracture, mm-hmm. and that's a simple fracture. It's a bone that's only a third weight bearing and doesn't require anything really exotic.
Yeah, in the leg.
Yes. And so then I guess it was published, I'm sure. Did you see the video of him on the anti-gravity treadmill?
No, I did not.
That's pretty frightening for me because, one, it's 3 months that he was non-weight bearing. And he has what looks like to me atrophy of both his calves.
Wow.
And the other thing is, he went down to North Carolina to have Dr. Anderson, who's is an outstanding foot and ankle specialist. He's like the Jim Andrews, for knees, shoulders, and elbows. But there are plenty of good foot and ankle surgeons in New York. So this had to be more severe for him to go there, and two, for him to be non-weight bearing for 3 months.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the injury is. I can only surmise that it involves the joint, because usually if it's just the bone, you can weight bear on it earlier than that. So seeing what I saw yesterday really alarmed me, because he has a long ways to go to get that muscle back.
Right.
And so I think we're giving him, it's $18 million or $15 million for the franchise tag.
Yeah.
I mean, in retrospect, if it was my decision, which it's not, I probably would use the franchise tag on Snacks and
Not let him walk to the Giants.
not on Walk to Giants, and at least from the photograph or the video I saw of Wilkinson's leg, I don't know if he's going anywhere that fast. And I'd rather have the $15 million in cap space and still maybe work on a long-term deal, because I don't know if he's going to go anywhere. And if he is, we're going to lose him next year anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's only for 1 year. Okay, so doctor, just give me, a lot of my listeners are not professional athletes, so give me like your top recommendation for the athlete, the aging athlete who, is in, we'll say, the beer league, softball leagues, or the adult flag football leagues, and is not performing as he or she would have liked. So what is like your top tip for someone in that position?
Well, I think the tips is that, one, the earlier you start in, keeping in shape in life, the better it is, and you should always continue with some activity. And I guess since I've reached the area that, I'd be considered old, and 2 years ago I fought in the Masters heavyweight division in Gleason's Gym in Brooklyn, and I beat someone 20 years younger.
Wow.
40 pounds
That's crazy.
larger and 3 inches larger. I treat patients functionally and not chronologically. And I play polo with a gentleman who's in his early 80s. So I think you could have a couch potato, that someone's that's has very little function because they've done nothing their whole lives, or you could have someone like this gentleman who runs his own company and plays polo. And you also see that probably the last thing that you would have to give up, and if you look at the times, runners that run in the marathons in their 80s still have really respectable times. So the things is that when you get older, you want to concentrate on stretching. You want to concentrate on core strengthening, aerobics, eating healthy, getting enough sleep. And again, you have to give yourself time to recover. So if you're in a league and you're playing like 3 games in a row, at a certain age, that might not be wise. And especially if you're feeling sore in a particular area, you may want to go for some treatment, physical therapy, or, stretch it yourself, but you still want to give it time.
Right.
The other thing I recommend to most of my patients are 2 ingredients that you could take over the counter. One is glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate. And those have a lot of the products that make up articular cartilage, which is the cartilage that covers the joints. And when you lose that, that's when you have arthritis. Now, there isn't a study that shows that it actually rebuilds cartilage, but there's definitely studies to show that it reduces pain compared to placebos. So it's, pretty innocuous to take, and so I recommend taking that.
Great.
If it doesn't work after a couple of months, and the other is omega-3 fatty acids. That's good for, that's fish oil. That's good for anti-inflammatory properties and also cardiovascular. So I recommend that. And then there are recent studies with respect to taking vitamins that if you juice green, in particular the green vegetables, kale, spinach, sweetgrass, sweetgrass, that's better than a lot of the multivitamins, and that's very healthy for you. I know it doesn't taste very good, but it is very healthy for you, and that's been recommended and shown that it has benefits.
Great. Dr. Stoller, you are a wealth of knowledge. Thank you again for coming on. I would love to have you on, in the future sometime. So
Sure. I could always talk about jets. We never got into boxing. I've been in the ring as cut man, assistant trainer, doctor, etc. Also, I just wanted to mention that I have a wealth of information on my website, drstoller.com. Under education, there are maybe close to 100 animated videos that list the injury and also have treatments. So feel free to go on it, and also my number's there.
Yeah.
You can always contact me.
Yeah, so his website is drstoller.com, and the phone number for the office, I believe, is 201-261-000. 2000. Okay, there's a typo in there. Okay, 201-261-2000. So Dr. Stoller, and his office is in Englewood, New Jersey, for anybody local. So Dr. Stoller, thank you for coming on. Very much
pleasure.
appreciate
Great.
it.
Danielle, thank you.
Bye.
Hope to talk to you again.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks. Bye. Wow, he knows what he's talking about, doesn't he? Jesus, oh my God.
I was trying to take notes during that.
I know, me too. Stem cells and cardiovascular. And Andy, do you have a solution to your?
Yeah, I hope he's totally wrong about the PRP in my joints.
It doesn't sound like it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I think my doctor would have something to say about that. I don't know. I'd like to hear them go at it verbally on the air. Maybe we can set that up.
Well, you know what? Maybe we can have a debate.
I'll be bringing this down for my next appointment and letting him listen to it. He's my doctor's cool. He'll. I'm sure he'll have something to say about it.
Yeah, Dr. Stoller seems to think that you need to be opened up.
Yeah, no, I do not. I've been opened up enough in this world, and I don't need to do it again.
All right, so moving on to our next thing. Hi, you're on 60-Minute Overtime. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Brian Martin from Parabolic.
Hi, Brian. Okay, so Brian Martin from Parabolic is it's an interesting form of training for athletes, and he is the NFL program director for Parabolic Performance and Rehab, and he's also the NFL trainer of NFL Combine athlete Stephen Longa, who we've also had on this program, I think, 2 weeks ago. So thanks for taking the time out. I know you're at a conference, so I don't want to keep you too long, but I just had a couple questions for you. What is parabolic training? What is the focus of it?
Well, Parabolic, we do performance and rehabilitation, so we have full physical therapy as well as a medically integrated program for performance training. So we do strength, speed, we bring in nutritional aspect as well as mental to prepare athletes to the next level, male or female. But right now it's NFL Combine time, so we've been preparing players for the NFL.
Yeah, so I have my co-host Andy here, and I'm also on
What's up, pal?
with Cory Cannici.
doing?
He's he owns a training school here locally.
The Parisi Speed School in Wyckoff, New Jersey. I don't know if you've heard of Parisi's. There's about 100 of them around the country, but
Yes, I have.
So, I mean, my goal would be to get you guys talking real kinds of trainer stuff here. So,
well, I had a quick question for you. Do you guys only work with athletes, or do you use some of these methods with older adults and anything like that?
Yes, we use it with all levels, from performance training if somebody wants to get ready for their golf game or tennis, all the way down to young kids that are working on speed development, and then we have a full suite of physical therapy services as well.
Mm-hmm. You guys work with wrestlers or any MMA guys at all?
Yes, actually we do. We have both. We had a bunch of wrestlers down at the. We train a lot of the kids from the Edge School of Wrestling with Arnie Monaco's group. We train a lot of them, and then we also have MMA guys. Cory Bleakin is one from Clifton, New Jersey.
Okay.
But
Do you guys have like your the same kind of program set up, or do you guys train more specifically for certain things that they're looking for, or they just go there for overall fitness?
Completely specific.
Okay, cool.
It's completely specific to each sport and to each individual. And everyone has an individualized program. I think that's one of the biggest differences with us is that every single person that comes in gets a completely personalized program.
That's great.
Is that what you do, Cory?
Yeah, I mean, we try to do something similar, depending on the level of the athlete. Obviously, if they're at that level, then they're definitely getting an individualized program.
Right.
So you guys work also on the mental aspect of this as well?
Yes, we bring in a team of sports psychologists. Some have worked with the New York Giants, and we work on the mental aspect too. And it's when preparing for big events as you lead up to the event, and be prepared for all the interview process at the NFL level as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of UFC and high-level MMA guys have hired sports psychologists in the past to help them get over some of the problems that they have when it comes to fight week and all that kind of stuff. It's a big part of it that not a lot of people take into consideration.
Yeah, between cutting the weight and then just dealing with the physical aspect of it.
Yeah,
definitely you have to be prepared mentally. No question about it.
Brian, can I ask what the intake process is like for any of the new athletes coming into your program?
Yeah, every athlete goes through as a minimum. They're going through a functional movement screen, and we also have a wide balance test, all through functional movement systems. We have a gentleman by the name of John Tureen on our team that works with functional movement systems. Used to be the head strength coach for the Colts, for the Indianapolis Colts. So we bring them through a full, thorough evaluation process. If they have any medical, then our physical therapy team will do an additional evaluation for any acute injuries. And once we bring them through that, then we'll go through some baseline testing depending on what they're preparing for. If it's for football, we're preparing them through NFL combine testing, 40-yard dash, a shuttle, 3-cone, bench press, and working towards that. If it's a younger athlete, then it would be modified down for them depending on what sport they're participating in.
When you get guys that coming in for obviously different sports, how do they differ when they come to you? Like, do they? I'm assuming they all come to you looking for different things. Whether it be speed, strength, or agility. What do the? I'm curious to know what most of the MMA guys and the wrestlers come to you for. What do they come to you like looking to work on for the most part? I'm assuming it's.
I mean, they're looking to work on their conditioning level, their nutrition. Angelo Sidoros, heads up our nutrition, our performance director, and the nutrition's a huge piece for the MMA guys because they got to make weight.
Yeah.
The second piece would be conditioning and strength, and working on a lot of rotational power, transverse plane work. So you have a lot of the athletes training not just your traditional bench, squat, and clean. We're doing a lot of rotational power work, doing things to enhance their grip strength and things to enhance their balance. And just in overall conditioning to make sure they can handle that battle.
Yeah, because I was going to say with the MMA, there's a wide range of motions that you're doing. That's it's not really cookie cutter. Like not that other sports aren't, but I feel like there's a lot more to go into preparing for those type of movements and everything like that. And you kind of have to allot your time accordingly because I think those guys, a big problem with the MMA guys, they end up overtraining a lot. Which I think it's great that you guys have you can build a program for them around that so that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, they have to be specific to what those types of movements, which is like you said, it varies a lot. So you got to hit from a lot of different angles, but also time it out so that they don't overtrain.
Yeah,
it's all timing. For all the high level athletes who are getting ready for events, or if it's MMA or football, everything's timing, and you got to kind of time everything out so that they peak at the right time and not overtrain.
Brian, I have a question for you. There was some talk at the combine, I believe, this year that maybe they would change some of the drills. Obviously, there's been some issues with offensive linemen running a 40 and wide receivers bench pressing. What do you think about that? Do you think that would there's some merit to that some of the events should be changed based on the athlete's position?
I mean, I do think that they should be changed, but I don't think they will be. Just being out there for I've been training NFL guys for 20 years, and what I've learned in the NFL business is that it's an apples to apples business. They really want to know, hey, this guy where he ran a 40 in 1981, so versus now at the same position, they want to compare apples to apples. So every year there's discussions. I mean, they adopted some other. More on the evaluation process, like functional movement screens and things like that over the last 5 to 7 years. But the actual drills, I don't know if they're ever going to change them. Even the bench press, I think anatomically the bench press is not the best thing for a shoulder, specifically if an athlete's had any rotator cuff issues or things like that. I would use dumbbells and put them on a physio ball if it were me, but it's something that I don't know if they're going to change it, just because if they're very slow to make changes to things that have been done for a long time.
Brian, this athlete as a whole thing, also with the mental aspect and the physical aspect, that's sort of new, right? Is that a wave of the future for athletes in any sport?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think at the high level, I think, if you look at, there's more and more specialization. You have more kids at a younger age that are starting to get into one sport, and it's so easy to overtrain. So you have to really be calculated and smart with everything that you do. I still am a proponent that I think kids should do multiple sports until they get to a certain age. But
yeah, I agree. We talked about that earlier, yep.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that, the specialized, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, I look at the wrestling schools. Ernie Monaco started the Edge School of Wrestling in 1984. He was the first one to do it. Now I think there's over 300 wrestling schools in New Jersey alone. So kind of one of those things that if you kind of got to get on the bus or you get run over by it,
When athletes come to you, two questions here. What's the biggest weakness that you see in most athletes, and what is the biggest mistake that they normally make that you see? Like, what's the biggest deficiency, I guess, that most guys that come to you have?
I think the biggest deficiency is, correcting any imbalances or any deficiencies that they may have. They may be, real strong on the right side and not as strong on their left. They just keep doing reps a certain way. They don't adapt or weaken, adjust to their weaknesses.
Okay.
Some are very strong in like the right hamstring, not in their left. They need to balance all that out. The other thing I think is just flexibility in general. I think most athletes, worry about getting stronger and faster. They don't stop the clock and do regeneration and recovery and use techniques to enhance their flexibility and mobility so they can move more efficiently. I think they get too worried about just getting bigger, stronger, and faster, and they forget how important it is to stay flexible and to be able to move as well as possible.
Yeah, and we see that at our speed school all the time. It seems like the better the athlete is, a lot of times the worse their flexibility is. I see kids that are, going to play college basketball that can barely squat down. They can't get down in a full squat. It's amazing to see sometimes.
Yeah, it sure is. And that's the thing. You got to catch a balance between that elasticity and the power and the being not flexible enough to where injuries start to become an issue. We start from everything we do is kind of movement based, from the movement up, and making sure that they're flexible and mobile, and that they will make sure they're working in recovery techniques and flexibility. In addition to everything else, we're very, very big on driving that home educationally.
And in your experience, based on your own opinion, what sport has the best overall athlete in terms of strength, endurance, conditioning, overall movement? Which sport has, I guess, the best well-rounded athlete?
I'm going to make a guess.
I would say
basketball.
I would say, basketball is one for sure. I think basketball and soccer. In soccer, you have to cover a lot more ground. There's a lot of hand-eye coordination. A lot of team aspect. Basketball too. I mean, constant movement, just a different playing surface. I'd say basketball and soccer are two that are very high level as far as movement and having to take into account so many different facets of athleticism.
Great. So that's it. Any more questions from you guys, too?
None that I can think of right now.
All right.
I have to go to goparabolic.com after this.
Yeah. Actually, I was just going to give you your website a plug there, Brian. So if you're interested in more information, be sure to visit www.parabolic.com. And Brian, you have offices in where? Montclair and Little Falls, New Jersey?
Yeah, we're Montclair, Little Falls, New Jersey, and we just added a new location in Hackensack.
Okay.
And we recently just licensed Parabolic Performance, so we actually opened our first place just outside of Chicago.
Wow.
So
Expansion.
we are expanding.
Nice.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so then also on Twitter, Brian's Twitter handle is @bmartinsports, and you can also follow @goparabolic.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Brian. We really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time out.
Thank you.
Good talking to you.
All right, good. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Man, we got one expert after another on. Hey, yeah. Interesting.
That guy was cool.
Yeah, he's very knowledgeable. Everybody's so knowledgeable. I'm glad. Now, he sounds like a nice guy. He's expanding and stuff. Actually, I was just looking at the.
He said soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, as far as I can see, like soccer. I mean, definitely probably has the most endurance. Maybe as far as basketball, but with the strength and the size of the guys, I don't know. I think that. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, Brian, I was on his website as he was talking. I wanted to make sure I got the offices down. But as I was loading up the website, he actually gave an interview for the big sports network, WFAN, in New York. So I'm honored he would take the time out to talk with us today. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, Cory, you've been patiently waiting. Cory not only is the speed school owner, but he is a very passionate fan about basketball. Anybody that knows Cory knows that he is Nets, New Jersey, Brooklyn Nets, through and through.
It's been really tough lately, though, but if Sean Mark's getting hired, I'm back on board. I'm good.
Yeah. You know what, Cory, I wanted to ask you, before we even got into these articles, New Jersey Nets, Brooklyn Nets. We talked on here about the Rams leaving St. Louis to go to California, obviously. But what were your thoughts when the Nets decided they were going to go to Brooklyn, up and move?
I thought it was definitely the best idea for the franchise. I mean, hey, look, I lived probably 15 minutes from the arena down there, had season tickets, was able to go all the time. I don't go very often to Brooklyn because it's too far. Hard to get to. But best for the franchise. What player wanted to come and play in New Jersey? I think the answer is, obviously they were bad most of their time in New Jersey. Take for a few years with Jason Kidd. But they have a chance to attract some free agents. They have a chance to get guys to want to stay there going forward in Brooklyn, I think. So as a fan, I'm happy about it. As somebody who wants to go to the games, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm not a basketball fan 100% through and through, but, they kind of left New Jersey, so I kind of jumped off. I'm a Knicks fan now.
I mean,
when I root for them.
I'm going to hold that against you, but we're okay still.
Okay, so Cory, we were talking. I was reading this on, I guess, Thursday afternoon it was, or maybe Friday. I don't remember. But I had an article of ESPN magazine. I was like, oh my God, Cory, you got to read these articles. And what did you say to me?
I didn't actually say this to you, but I actually had them linked up on my my social media page for my gym like 2 weeks ago when they came out.
What is it?
It's Wyckoff PT, the Parisi Speed School. My adult training business is Wyckoff Personal Training, so that's where that comes from. So,
and you were like, "Oh, Danielle, I'm already on top of this stuff."
Yeah, I mean, oh my God, I read it 3 times. I love anything about especially basketball training, and the stuff they were talking about in both of these articles was really interesting, not just for athletes, but for, I think, the general population moving forward. I think some of this technology will be able to be used for 60-year-olds, 80-year-olds to get them feeling okay while they're moving too.
Yeah, so the first article was it's called "The Analytics of the NBA Body." And
I sent this, by the way, to the one of the kids that I'm training that's going to play college basketball next year, and just trying to get him hyped because I loved everything about this.
This was crazy.
The other article that just came out about Kawhi Leonard also was the one with he still drives a '97 truck, something that he had in high school. Guy's worth $90 million. He's driving around in a '97 Tahoe or something like that.
Cool.
It's great.
I like him.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So this article here, the main quote, the main entrance here was, the NBA has brought the metric revolution to the human molecular level, remaking the bodies of its players through analytics. So, I mean, that's kind of a very wordy definition of this, but basically the NBA is looking at the player as a whole. Like, I'm talking the distance between pinky and thumb and comparing it and analyzing data, running all kinds of tests, and I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, the NBA is so far ahead, I think, of anybody else as far as the analytics go with the actual body. Yeah. Obviously, baseball's done their job as far as analytics of the sport, but as far as the body goes, it's amazing. But, I mean, some things, like the distance between your pinky and your ring finger, I don't know. If Kawhi Leonard's fingers were a little further apart, he'd still be a freak. He'd still have the biggest hands around. Even if he didn't, he'd still be an all-star player. He'd still be one of the best in the game.
Oh, here, I'm looking here at Kawhi Leonard. They have, and I'll show it to the camera because we are videoing this today. So ESPN Magazine has it's 11.25 is the number of inches from his thumb to his pinky, which is 3.8 inches longer than the average man. His wingspan is 7'3", the longest in the NBA Combine database relative to his 6'7" height. I mean, they're analyzing everything. It's like toenail length and thing.
Honestly, though, when it comes to sports that have been around a long time, if they have the data if they had the data from that going back in time, I think they could make some pretty accurate assessments to an athlete based on the measurements and also the speed that they run at and a couple of other strength and conditioning things. That's what that movie, basically Moneyball, was about, right?
Yeah.
Taking analytical
more of like stats, though.
stats, but this kind of goes in the same direction that goes into. We're getting a little bit more detailed in it because I kind of noticed that nowadays, especially like with sports like football, and correct me if I'm wrong, but football back in the day being a contact sport, you had guys that were, and this is most sports to my understanding, when they first getting like really big, they start off with guys that play mostly just on raw talent who are crazy enough to do the sport that they do. And now, since they get bigger, they're getting paid more, you're getting more of an all-around, well-trained athlete. So in football, you look at guys back in the day, they don't look like the guys that they are, the guys that play today, as far as like specimen-wise. You get a couple guys that you could probably throw in today and they would be okay. But for the most part, they pretty much are narrowing it down to like the highest-end athlete. And, I think stuff like this is kind of what they look at, and that's why they have the combines, if I'm not mistaken, right? They're looking for guys with the stats that they want and all that, no?
But I mean, yeah, definitely. But what you don't get, I guess, in a combine, well, I don't know. The NFL combine, I guess, has their interviews and their tests and things like that.
I'm talking freak athletes aside.
Well,
I'm talking like, your Lawrence Taylors and all those guys, like, they're going to make it whether, they're training or not training. They're just freak athletes. But
even then, sometimes the guys don't have the determination to become the player they should be. Kawhi Leonard is successful not just because he's a freak athlete. There's plenty of freak athletes in the NBA, but because he's so driven to get better every single day. It's in that article. It's in the other article that just came out the other day.
I guess what they're like. What I mean is like it's not so much guaranteed, but it's filtering out the ones that, like, because you can have a guy with the craziest work ethic, but he could be built like olive oil from Popeye. He's just never going to be a running back or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So I think when it comes to sports that have been around and that there's so much money involved in them that they're trying to get the best of the best before they even accept those guys as like considering them to play. You know what I'm saying? And of course there's going to be guys that don't make it there that probably should have because they just never got the opportunity. But I see what you're saying as well. But I just think that sports is getting so crazy with the level of athlete that they're is playing nowadays. It's I mean, do you think the athletes today are light years ahead of the ones 30 years ago?
Yes, I have this conversation a lot. I don't know. I've gone back and forth with some people about this. I think, again, just bringing up the NBA because I'm such so in tune to the NBA. You could argue with me all the time. I think Bill Russell is looked at as one of the greatest NBA players of all time, and I think if you put him in today's NBA, he's an undersized. Yeah, again, the heart, the energy, the passion for the sport, the passion to get better, that would translate well. But he was like 6'9", and I think he'd probably get destroyed if you threw Shaq at him.
Yeah, I have this conversation a lot too with my buddies when it comes to fighting. Especially with that, everyone's, especially with boxing, taking people out of different eras. I don't really think that you can compare people of this in the same sport for, I'd say, about 10 years. Is how far you can go back when you're talking about putting people against each other.
Right.
Because not only the sport changes with the rules, but how the sport is played,
Right.
The level of athlete, all that kind of stuff has to come into play. I mean, you just look at football, they play more games now. Baseball, they play more games now. Stats are messed up. And also, too, like the
Guys
training
are throwing
regimens.
100 miles an hour in baseball, every guy now,
Yeah.
instead of just maybe one 30 years ago.
And it's really not even fair to take those guys back in the day. And honestly, like I said, you don't want to discredit them by saying they would get destroyed today, but it's a simple matter. The only guy that I can think of, and I don't know basketball very well, but you look at basketball players now as opposed to they were back then, they look more like NFL players muscular wise than they were back in the day because it's a more physical sport. They realize that having the size, besides what's the guy's name that was in Conan, the Destroyer, the big guy, he was the center for the was it LA Lakers?
I have no idea.
Will
Shaq?
Chamberlain.
Okay.
He was like the biggest dude back in the day,
by
right?
far.
Yeah,
by far.
And he really wasn't. Like, if you see him next to guys nowadays, he looks like an average player.
Right.
So getting back to this, but I don't know. Do you, in your opinion, Cory, think that some players may go overlooked or underlooked in drafts and in signings because of their body measurements?
Well, yeah, I think we see that every single year in every sport. You you've got the Jets hat on right now. Who was their pick a few years? Vernon Gholston?
Yeah, Vernon
6th
Gholston.
overall,
Mhm.
and he stunk.
Yeah.
He was physically gifted. There was a guy a few years ago that the Dolphins drafted, Deion Jordan. That was like 2 years ago. He's the 3rd overall pick in the draft, and he stinks. He can't play in the NFL.
Yeah, D. Milliner with the Jets, too.
Right. I mean, these guys physically show up, and they're, the best athlete there, but their skills, their mental, aspect of the game is just not on par. It's not on an NFL level. So certainly, and the other way too. I mean, you see guys. Arian Foster wasn't drafted. How many times has he been to the Pro Bowl?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably Hall of Famers in every sport that weren't even drafted, which is crazy to think about because you think about just how many guys were bad that were drafted.
You think that
never
makes them
turned out
better?
to anything?
You think that makes them have more of a drive and want to be better that they weren't drafted?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For sure.
I think they talk about that all the time.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing with sports is guys that don't make it, that don't get drafted, what have you, and end up having to work harder to get there because they always have that hunger in them.
Definitely. I love that.
If you look at I don't really like the Patriots. I don't watch football, but I don't really like the Patriots. But the guy that I used to like from the Patriots was Wes Welker.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at him and he didn't look like a football player, and he was, to me, he was the most exciting guy on that team because he was so tiny.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. Was Wes Welker drafted? We might have to look that up.
Yeah, I'll look that up real quick. You know what? I'm not sure. I got to find the keyboard here. So, this Kawhi Leonard article here. So, we're talking measurements of athletes and stuff. And David Stern, actually, Cory, I didn't even tell you this. I think you would love this. David Stern he was the opening speaker, the keynote speaker at an event I went to last Monday.
Really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I thought of you as soon as I sat down. I was like, I should have told Cory about this. But I mean, he's very eloquent. By the way, he's the new 2 years commissioner of the NBA.
Adam Silver.
Adam Silver. Who did I say?
You said David Stern.
He's the old one.
commissioner.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Adam Silver was the keynote speaker at NYU, and he's just so eloquent. He seems like he understands every piece of this. Like from the kids coming up, he was talking about all the camps that he does with these kids, and how is that important to get kids at a young age, to capture them, one, as fans of the game, and two, as potential players of the game.
I mean, you could say that about any sport, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Is capturing their attention. We see that in basketball and football. You see these inner city kids that are great and they make it to the league, and then in baseball there's not as many of those because they're not exposed to the game. So,
right.
I mean, obviously it makes all the sense in the world. You got to have these kids involved, and actually there's something I'm working on with in inner city around here. I'd like to. I've been speaking to the Patterson Boys and Girls Club about getting some of the kids that belong there up into my gym for an hour. Get 10 kids, whatever it might be. Get the basketball team there and just train them for free. They need to have exposure to some training because they're so raw. They're such good athletes, but they never get the. I mean, like not all of them, but they get. They deserve some more coaching and some more
finesse.
Exactly.
Yeah. You think the reason why you don't see a lot of that is because of just the lack of equipment? Because to play basketball, all you need is a basketball and a hoop. And I feel like if you don't have if you're not going to a school that has good after school programs, you need a lot more equipment to play baseball than you do to play basketball.
It's definitely true. Definitely.
Yeah.
So and by the way, I just looked it up. Wes Welker was an undrafted free agent in 2004.
There you go.
There you go. He's currently a free agent right now. So, and then the other thing was Kawhi Leonard. Cory, I'll defer to you, the basketball man. In late January, this is right from the article, Leonard was named as a starter for the All-Star game, making him the only player other than Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon to be awarded Finals MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and an All-Star starter.
I mean, I think that goes to it speaks for his work ethic. I mean, to be on, you said Jordan and Olajuwon.
Yeah.
To be on that level.
Yeah. People don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name. I mean,
Right. Well, that's this other article that I just read the other day, because of the person he is, and they were talking about this actually during the Spurs-Warriors game last night.
Yeah.
Is he's not getting any calls. He's a superstar. He's probably the second best player, third best player in the NBA right now after Curry and LeBron, and he doesn't get any calls. That's unheard of in the NBA, but it's because he gets a foul called against him and he sort of just turns away. He's not crying and complaining to the refs like every other star in the NBA.
Yeah, Cory, this and then this measurement and things like that. How will it revolutionize? We were talking briefly, but I didn't want to go into depth with you on text messages. But how will this revolutionize the NBA, other sports, and just regular people? Just looking at people's measurements, and as a trainer, put on your trainer hat. You get an 80-year-old guy coming in, you do his measurements, and then how does that affect the training program that you will provide for him?
An 80-year-old guy?
Yeah, just in general.
I love that idea because this is already in sports. You know what I mean? I'm familiar with somebody who's out of the works with the University of Virginia men's basketball program. They use every electronic technology thing that they could ever use to measure what these guys are doing. So it's at the pro level, it's at the college level. We'll probably see it at the high school level, especially in some of the higher level high schools. But what about, we were speaking with Brian Martin before, I believe, about what does a 60-year-old person do? What does an 80-year-old person do? And I think that's going to be a game changer in just overall healthcare, is using some of this information and saying, all right, how are we going to prevent the 80-year-old from having to have a hip replacement or a knee replacement? How do they move? How can we correct this at 55 so that at 75 they don't have to have these surgeries? I think that's it's a whole other conversation. It's something I would like to start working on in my own gym.
Maybe you can pair up with the doctor over there. And then just the other article that was in ESPN Magazine was an article about Steph Curry, really. It was called The Best Worst Ankles in Sports.
This is another one that got emailed out to like 5 of my athletes that I work with.
Yeah, so Cory, go ahead. What is it about, and what is the takeaway from this article?
Basically, we forget now that Steph Curry's been in the NBA for, 7 or 8 years?
As far as I'm concerned, 1.
Right, and people only started to know about him 2 or 3 because he was chronically injured.
Yes.
He had sprained ankles. I don't know all the different injuries that he specifically had, but he couldn't stay on the court until they changed up his training regimen. Basically, introduced yoga, introduced hip strengthening, which I was actually shocked by. They talk about in the article about how he's hurting his ankles and how he wasn't training his hips before. I mean, everything I know about being an athlete says train your core and your hips, your glutes first. That's going to save your knees, your ankles, your back, everything. I could go on about this, but I was shocked that he wasn't doing that beforehand. But 2, obviously it's saved his career. It's brought us the best basketball player of now. You know what I mean, of this era.
A quick question. I know that like the NFL and all that, they have like their off days and they do a strength and conditioning program. When it comes to the NBA, are those guys do they have like their own strength and conditioning program with the team, or are they kind of do they get like cut loose more than other sports, or are they, because like you said, you're surprised that he wasn't training that, like I would assume that the trainers would have picked up on the deficiency there. So are they kind of just, are they strict with it, or they just let them do whatever they want, or?
No. I mean, look, I'm not a trainer with a team or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've never.
Not yet.
Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate that. I don't know as far. Yes, definitely. They're working with the team every day. They've got a strength and conditioning guy that's a doctor, and they've got a big staff and all that. I don't know all the specifics, but they certainly did. I don't have an answer for. I don't know who the strength coach was. Working with him beforehand, that he wasn't, that he couldn't deadlift, but. Or do some of the single leg exercises? His hinge motion, his squat motion. I don't have an anser for that. I don't know why.
The team sports are very foreign to me. So if these are stupid questions, just let me know.
But yeah, they certainly have. Every sport certainly has a whole staff that these guys have 24-hour a day, 7-day a week care.
Because with I'm used to dealing with when I see guys training like for the MMA or UFC or whatever, they pretty much do their own camp. Like it's them that chooses where they go and whatnot. It's not like you have a team that with all these people that are telling you where your weaknesses are. It's like you have to go kind of find your own thing. But if you have those guys there, like you think, like you said, you're surprised that they didn't pick up on that, especially with how, this guy's supposed to be one of the best players, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cory, in the article too, two things. They focused on, now the NBA is putting a focus on not linear training, more of like you said, his hip rotation, his ankle rotation, knee rotation when he plays. Are you doing that in your gym and trying not to keep kids so linear in their motions and having them being able to be more flexible in their movements?
Definitely. I mean, we're trying to put in the work and learning every day on how to work better with athletes in that way. You can't just have an athlete, unless he's a power lifter, just sit there and squat all day or do lunges all day. It's both movement laterally, and this was in the Kawhi Leonard article as well. Both movement laterally, strength laterally, rotational strength. Brian Martin had mentioned that before with his athletes. We've got to get them moving in every plane of direction to make sure that once they're on the court or once they're on the field, they're not getting hurt and they're strong in every direction. Their body works synergistically. Their lower body works with their core, works with their upper body together to make sure they don't have energy leaks in the body when they're moving. I mean that's what we're always trying to get better at.
In the article they said, and I'll quote Steph Curry, his central nervous system is the best they've ever worked with. That's why he's a great golfer, bowler, shooter. And he swiftly perfected this yoga pose called the single leg hip airplane. I don't know what that is, but maybe we can try it after we go
I'll
off
have
the
to
air.
do that for the video.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we can maybe try it, all three of us. But to build balance and core strength, central nervous system, like what?
Yeah, I mean, you need your central nervous system. I mean, look, you probably would have to talk to a doctor about the central nervous system more in depth. I know how to get the central nervous system fired up, warmed up. I don't know enough about it to say, hey, this is how we get it better. I don't know all the details as far as conditioning of a central nervous system.
Yeah. So and also in the article they had mentioned about how he has had. Basically, they rebuilt his ankles, and they're saying they snaked a 1 ounce HD camera into his subtalar and ankle joints, and it produced images of sticky bands of scar tissue. And then what they did was, after 90 minutes, a motorized device called the shaver scraped and vacuumed all of it away in less than 90 minutes. What is a training regimen like for someone that comes to you with reconstructive surgery in any part of the body?
Well, we are trying to be in constant contact with their doctor, not constant contact, but, have a full idea of what happened, what's going on with both their doctor and their physical therapist. That's not what we do. We can take prescriptions sort of from a doctor and physical therapist to continue them. But also we have to just try to get them to regain their range of motion. You have to be smart about when you get back to certain exercises, how you strengthen certain exercises, whether it's an isolated movement or it's a compound full movement. There's every athlete, every person is so different, and every prescription from a doctor or a physical therapist is so different. So some people, I see them 20 years after they've had a surgery or an injury. Sometimes I get them when they're still hobbling, and I say, "Holy, how am I supposed to work with this person? They can barely walk." Every person's different, and it's important to stay in tune with and in touch with how they're feeling, and what their doctors are saying.
And part of Steph Curry's training regimen was that he didn't right away trust his ankle. Like you said, like we touched on, he had ankle injuries. He was out for a lot of his career before this. But how do you get the athlete to regain trust in his or her newly repaired whatever it is? That's
the mental aspect. I'm actually working with a kid now. He's been in. I think it was a meniscus tear. He's had multiple already, and he's coming off of 2 years. I think he's in 8th grade. He's coming off of 2 years of not being able to play sports because of multiple injuries to his knees, and it is it's a mental battle. I mean, even for me as the coach, I have to doubt myself sometimes and say, am I pushing this kid too much? Should I tell him, no, come on, it's going to feel okay. It's a tough thing. You have to be mentally prepared. You have to be confident in your doctor. You have to be confident in your physical therapist. You have to be confident in your trainer that we're giving you the right movements and you're going to be okay. Obviously, people re-injure themselves all the time. Knock on wood, that has not happened with any of the athletes or the.
We went through Andy's whole medical history with that other doctor.
Guilty.
Andy should have his own show where he just talks about his injuries. I mean, he's had 45 surgeries.
I'll call it handicapped.
You've thought about this before, clearly, because that's brilliant.
And that was pretty quick. You came out with that.
Seriously.
As you're talking, Cory, I just get a ESPN update on my phone. Yankees Jacoby Ellsbury, right wrist, out until at least Thursday. And Aaron Hicks is in line for more physical therapy. So, I mean, the baseball schedule is grueling. It's 82 games or 62. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
62.
162 games. So
in 180 days.
Yeah, plus the playoffs, plus the postseason.
Right.
You get someone in with, a baseball person. It's like, it's almost better to take some time off.
Right.
For the long run than it is to be in every single game playing somewhat hurt, and it's always going to get worse, right?
Right. I'm amazed sometimes by the resiliency of these athletes that have, they injure their shoulder in spring training and they play almost every single game.
That's what's going on right now.
Throughout the whole season. It's amazing, but it's a credit to the staff, the people that they work with, and their resiliency, because it's a 24-hour-a-day job to be an athlete, and they've got the staff helping them, and they've got to do a lot of work themselves.
I think an important thing to mention is that when athletes seem to come back a little bit too soon from a lot of injuries, from pressure from whether it be their coaches or their schedule.
Or themselves. Derek Jeter.
Also, too, I think athletes have the ability to heal quicker because of the staff that they have available to them.
Yeah.
Because like the doctor we had on before mentioned that you can't do anything for 6 months for a labral tear. My right shoulder alone was 14 months before I could touch a weight. So it definitely takes a lot longer if you're not don't have a staff as well, and also too, I feel like. How do you guys feel as far as if your guy's injured? Do you think he should be pushed back in too soon? Because I feel like unless you're at the end of your career, and this is like Peyton Manning, doesn't really have a whole lot to lose. It's not like he's got to prepare for next season if he gets injured. But if you're starting off in your career, I don't think you should be pushing an MCL or ACL tear. I think maybe take some time off, because those things once they get messed up, they
for sure. And I work with athletes starting at 7 years old, basically, straight up to college athletes. So, I mean, you're right. Yeah, you absolutely shouldn't rush back. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, especially when you have your whole career ahead of you. If you're a sophomore in high school and you're playing baseball and you've got an injury, why would you rush back now? Your sophomore year doesn't matter nearly as much as your junior year and your senior year, and what you can do going forward. If you rush back too soon, then you might not play next year.
Well,
you might miss
also,
two seasons.
I know that people in high school, especially if they're planning on going and getting a scholarship, and even people in college that are planning on going into professional whatever their sport is, they don't want anyone to know that they're injured.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they will not treat an injury or play through an injury because they do not want to be on the injured list, because that, from my understanding, is a huge part of scouting. Is if they're already injured, they do not want to have somebody with a pre-existing injury.
And Brandon Marshall, I was reading an article this morning. Brandon Marshall had a concussion and didn't tell anybody. Yep. He's a professional Jets player, and he didn't tell anybody because he didn't want to be taken out of the game.
Yeah.
So, Cory, what do you do with that?
That's a whole culture shift, I think, in sports that has to take place, and we're starting to see it in the NFL, especially with concussions and everything. It's hard to fault a guy when their career could be on the line if they say, hey, I think I might have a concussion, and they have to miss a few weeks, and all of a sudden they get cut from the team. Mm-hmm. It's tough to blame them. It's a job where they might be getting paid millions of dollars a year versus being done and not being able to play it. Should they report the injury? Of course they should, but I could see where they're coming from, and you hope that the staff can be, the coaches, the training staff can, one, help get them on the field, back on the field faster, and two, understand that the guy's life matters after football, and you can't just say, oh, he's got a concussion, he's got to get back out there.
Going off the rails a little bit here.
Oh, no.
Just want your opinion real quick. What is your thoughts on PEDs?
Oh, I was going to ask him
when it comes to, number one, sports in general, And number two, when it comes to healing an injury in
Wait,
sports.
Let me just interject there too, because I was thinking the same exact question, Andy, and I was thinking Andy Pettit with the Yankees. I'm thinking Roger Clemens. I'm also thinking Peyton Manning because he didn't really admit to taking it.
But here's the problem though. This is the problem I see when it comes to taking PEDs and allowing it for injuries is that what injuries are allowable to take it with. So
or any. What do you?
Or
think?
any, but.
It's really look. I don't know every downside of PEDs.
I'm talking like doctor prescribed, monitored, because as far as I'm concerned, some sports at the level that they're playing at. I mean, let's be honest. Most sports are dirty.
Yeah.
I'd say every sport is dirty, and they're a lot dirtier than people think. It's just that I mean, baseball, for instance, they always seem to catch these guys at the end of their career when they're about to retire. It's no surprise. But also, I think that when it comes to contact sports, I'm a little bit more hesitant because I don't, when you're talking football, boxing, MMA, you don't really want these guys being able to hit with ungodly or unnatural ability. I think it's a little bit of a gray area there.
Here's my opinion on PEDs in sports in regards to the injuries. If it's doctor prescribed, if it's proven that it's safe for that athlete to take it, I think there should be a period where they are allowed to take it, where they can get back on the field and it helps them, move along the recovery process. There should, again, I don't know all the specifics of exactly how it works going through the system, but there should be probably a cutoff date is my assumption, and they could take it up to a certain time, and then after they're done, they have to wait X amount of time before they're allowed to get back on the field. But either way, it's helped with their recovery process a little bit. Again, not an expert, but that's from my understanding of it. Ultimately, in sports, you want those athletes on the field. That's what people pay the big money for. That's obviously it's a huge investment from the organization standpoints. Yeah. That opinion might not be the most popular opinion, but that's what
because
I would say.
They have tried this. They tried this in the UFC. They gave out pretty much like they allowed certain people to use testosterone replacement therapy. It usually was used for people that have had subpar testosterone levels. Now, the problem that you run into with that is that people who abused steroids back in the day or just use steroids, sometimes it lowers your test levels because it shuts your endocrine system down.
Right.
So they didn't know how to determine whose test levels were low because of prior use and whose test levels were low basically just on genetics. And so they allowed, I think, 5 or 6 guys to use it. And when those 5 or 6 guys used, it was like the best example is Vitor Belfort was destroying everybody when he was on it. Then they took it back and they were like, no, nobody can use it now. It's getting too gray area, so they took it away, and you could see a huge difference in performance.
So he was allowed to use that while fighting.
He was allowed to use that while fighting. It was strictly tested, but again, he ended up testing positive for elevated levels because he was just taking too much of it. But at the same time, you get into like a real gray area because not everybody. The problem I have with it is that not everybody's built the same. Not everybody has the same genetics, and not everybody's on the same playing field. And I don't really have the answer, but I think it's definitely something to discuss. I just wanted to hear your opinion on the injuries, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I don't want to sound like I'm contradicting myself from 5 minutes ago, but if you can get that athlete back on the field safely with the use of something like that, as long as the long-term effects aren't there, negative effects, the long-term negative effects or positive effects, really, because you don't want the guy to be taking it while he's playing. You want it to be used strictly, just like Andy Pettit was believed to have used it, to help him through the recovery process, and then boom, he's shut off. He can't use it anymore. So,
Cory, just my final question of the day would be back to the Steph Curry article. When you play a video game and you have like those little meters, like the stamina meters for the players, right? Yeah. I think that's where the NBA is going to be going very shortly. Because what do you think about like wearable technology? First of all, they might be able to track. Oh, hey, this guy Cory, his stamina's a little low. Let's take him out. And they've been limiting. You've seen in baseball, limiting the number of innings pitched. You've seen in basketball, the number of minutes played in a game. What do you think about that?
They already use that. I know they're already using it at the college level. I know for a fact, just based on, again, some of the people I'm familiar with at the University of Virginia. He's got multiple things that he uses to track how they're feeling during the game, the distance traveled, how their body's reacting. It's an amazing thing. I'd love to see more information on it, but I know, to answer your question, that they're already using it.
Do you guys like that?
I love it.
I don't like that.
I do.
I don't like that. I think it takes the purity out of the sport. I think it becomes more, like you said, like a video game where you're playing more the stats and not the players.
I like it because as an athlete,
because we wouldn't have had Michael Jordan shooting 3-point game 6 winning shots with pneumonia if he had one of those on. They would have taken him.
Players still do play when they're sick.
Yeah.
But, I think it's good. In that Kawhi Leonard article, it talks about he plays 32 minutes a game.
That's it.
And same. I think Steph Curry has very similar.
Yeah.
He doesn't even play the most minutes on his own team, and he's the best player on the planet.
Yeah. I like it. I played basketball in high school, and I'll tell you, I was a guard, and I was running up and down the court. My coach figured out, and it worked. She took me out after 6 minutes of play just to give me a little break. And that was it for the rest of the game. It was just the weirdest thing, but with no analytics.
That I don't have a problem with, but I think it just doesn't sit right with me when you have a computer doing your thinking for you. You should be a good enough coach to recognize your own players and when they're doing good, when they're not doing good. I think that's part of coaching.
Ultimately, I think if it's designed to protect the player, and maximize the team as a whole. Maximize their ability, the way they can work together, and
also,
keep the injuries down.
Also, too, if everybody has it available to them, I'm less opposed to it.
Right,
but
that's what. Yeah.
If some teams have more money than others, and you're talking,
you could run into that problem, especially in college, where we're during the NCAA tournament now. A team like Kentucky or Virginia or Duke Kansas can afford anything in the world that they want for these players, and somebody like Middle Tennessee State. Might not be able to. I don't know the specifics of the individual schools, but some probably can have that, and some probably don't have the budget for it.
Yeah, I think it takes the purity out a little bit.
And by the way, speaking of purity and PEDs and everything, I want to come back on here and discuss Barry Bonds as being the greatest player of all time, because I'm really passionate about this. I want Tyler on here, too, for that.
Okay, we'll get Tyler in here, too. Tyler, if you're listening, we'll get you guys. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Cory, you're welcome back anytime. Thank you.
That's great. That's awesome.
Thank you for coming. Okay, so I guess that's going to wrap it up for this week. It's 3:15. Wow, we went over a little bit, but that's okay. It's all good stuff.
You want me to talk about the fights at all, or no? You got it. We're cutting it off.
You got 5 minutes? You want to do it?
I'll talk for 5 minutes about the fights.
Go ahead.
All right. So last night they had UFC Frank Mir versus Mark Hunt. Did any of you guys watch that? It was
Andy, I was in bed at 9 o'clock last night.
Oh, come on.
Same. UFC's on too late.
Yeah, it's on too late. It is. I saw on Twitter. Was it like a 1 minute thing? 1 minute round? Was that Mir something?
Yeah, Frank Mir fought Mark Hunt. I didn't want to pick, but I did pick Hunt on that one. It wasn't really that hard of a guess if how he was going to win. But that dude has the crazy. I think he has probably the most power of anybody in the sport. He's known for, like I was telling you last time, for hitting guys, knocking them out, and not finish them, just walking away. That's what he did last night. He tagged Frank Mir, and he went down. He just walked away. The ref didn't even jump in right away. He just walked away and said, he's done. And the ref ended up stopping it.
Oh my God.
But and then we don't actually have another UFC card until
200, right? Because I've been paying attention, Andy. It's 200. It's going to be McGregor.
Yes,
and
but that's
Diaz,
not the next UFC card.
He's got me paying attention to this.
Yeah, I got you paying attention now. But the next UFC card will be Ben Rothwell versus Junior Dos Santos, and that's going to be a good fight because they're two different kind of polar opposites there when it comes to where they're at in their career. JDS has had the belt before at the heavyweight division, and he was known as one of the best strikers in the heavyweight division. And Ben Rothwell has been working his way up. He's been on a tear lately. He's been winning to a lot of people's surprise against some high-level veterans. And JDS is kind of on his way down, I think. He's been getting knocked out a little bit lately. He's taken a lot of brain damage. So I think that if he doesn't win this, he's going to have like a real hard decision to make, because he's taken if you watch some of his fights, they're difficult to watch because he's so tough that he's basically out on his feet in a couple of them, and he just got knocked out against Alistair Overeem. So I think it depends on who, how the guys show up there. But I think Rothwell might shock the world yet again and get the win over JDS. But if he does, I think he might get a title shot. If not one more fight and then a title shot. And if JDS doesn't win, I don't think he'll ever get another title shot. So we'll see how that goes.
We talked about last week, title shots and stuff.
Yeah, it's craziness. So I think it's on the 10th. So it's on a Sunday. It's actually on, I think, next Sunday. So we might. I don't know if
we
we're
might
going
do a preview.
We might do a preview for it, or if it might be going on the same time, depending on what country it's in. Because usually when they do it on Sundays, it's in a different country.
Okay.
Yeah, and then after that, they got the one. We'll talk about the UFC after that because we went over big time on the time today.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So today we started the show with a discussion about young athletes and Cory and kids at 7 years old, and then we ended with the aging athlete with Dr. Stoller, pretty much. Mom just said you weren't in bed at 9 o'clock. Well, I was sleeping on the couch at 9 o'clock. Thanks to obviously everybody involved today. Andy, again, for coming out. Cory in studio. You're our second in studio guest. You're welcome back anytime.
I'm honored.
So,
it was fun.
Barry Bonds, let's do it. Let's talk about it. Because he's the Marlins coach now.
He is,
so.
And apparently he beat Giancarlo Stanton in a home run derby because he's the greatest player of all time.
Sounds like you're like a little bit like on the fence about how he was. I guess he's portrayed. Barry Bonds? You think he gets a little bit of a hard rap?
I'm sure he was taking every performance-enhancing drug in the world. But
I think everybody in baseball was.
A lot of people at that time, and he was ridiculous.
I think they still are.
I don't know about that. But he was on another planet still when they were all taking – they were all – not all, but there were a lot of athletes taking drugs, and I could talk about that for a long time.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yes, let's do
down.
it. So, so he actually, just beat Giancarlo Stanton, who's supposed to be the best of the Marlins ever,
Right, he's massive. He's 6'5" and whatever. He looks like a linebacker and a lineman all together.
Yeah,
and could hit 60 home runs in a season. But Barry Bonds at almost 50 years old is still better. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Then Dr. Ann Summers, if you ever need any eye care needs, she's great. In Ridgewood, the Giants team ophthalmologist. Brian Martin. I always want to say Brandon Martin because I have Brandon Martin. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I always, but it's Brian Martin. GoParabolic.com. That was pretty cool. And then Dr. Steven Stoller in the orthopedic surgeon in Englewood. I'm listening. All these people are giving up their time for free, and I can always say thank you, but it really means a lot to me for everybody involved here just to be giving up their time to do this.
Yeah.
Really. So
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like coming here. Just talk about fighting and stickball and foosball and all the other sports you guys watch.
So, Andy, we're not, just so you know, we didn't get to talk about this yet, but we're not on next Sunday because it's Easter Sunday. So happy Easter to everybody out there. And as they say in Italy, it's a Buona Pasqua. And we'll see you guys again on Sunday, April 3rd.
Oh, so next Sunday we're not here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So we got the week off next Sunday.
Okay, awesome.
Sunday, April 3rd is our next one here. So ciao for now, everybody. And
ciao.
Happy Easter.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Follow me on Twitter at Coach McCartan. That's at Coach MCCARTAN. To find my work on YouTube and SoundCloud, search with no spaces Coach McCartan. Subscribe yourself so you don't have trouble finding it in the future. That's it for today, everybody. Listen live next Sunday, 1:30 to 2:30 p.m.